Up until about 3 days before performance, I was rolling around on a knee walker because I had broken my ankle. And I felt like the maniac cow from Into the Woods because I would roll in one direction and roll the other one and try to dance on one foot. Luckily, I did get the cast off right before show date.
Having my mother as my boyfriend was really weird and hard to get in character because every time I would try and look at my boyfriend, I would literally just see my mother and be like, no, that is weird.
I had no problem at all loving her, dancing with her. It was so much fun.
It was really fun.
We had a great time. Just only when she slapped me on my face,
Yeah,
for
I had
real.
to slap my mom on the face for real.
In this show, I was finally able to put my years of gymnastics training to good use. However, the goal for that somersault was for my wig not to fall off. And it took about an hour to get all the bobby pins out after the show.
The big show secret that we all hoped would stay a secret was when the barbershop quartet, before entering on stage, would try and hum our note together backstage with a little pitch pipe really quietly, even though we were right by the curtain and could potentially be picked up by the mic.
I was never a man on stage before, so my husband decided to give me a few tips, which I shared with my other barbershop men. He said to look both lost and hungry at the same time.
Sharon as Harold Hill was supposed to start me off on a note for ice cream. And she started off a little higher than we were used to, and it got to Michali's big ice cream moment, and she was so high that we all started laughing. We couldn't keep it together. Thank God it was just a dress rehearsal. It was probably the funniest moment ever.
Some of my favorite moments in the show are things that we had improvised in rehearsal, kind of like mistakes. Sharon always shows up very prepared, has a prop in her hand, she's good to go. And one time she didn't have a pencil, and I pulled a pencil out of my hair and handed it to her to write down the boys' measurements. And that's what ended up in the show.
During opening show, I went to step up on the fountain during Wells Fargo Wagon, and I stepped on my skirt and it actually started to fall off of me, but I caught it before it could fall down. And then as I was singing Wells Fargo Wagon, I turned to Yael, who's standing behind me, and was like, my skirt, and she fixed it.
After one of the shows, me and another actress had gone to the audience and said hello to people, and a couple of girls, probably around my age, came up to me and they were like, wow, like, I can't believe you're a real girl. And I looked to the other actress and I was like, yeah, I'm a real girl.
Funny costume memory, Sharona brought me this really great police hat to try on, and I said, don't worry, I'll make her work, even though it was really, really tight. So I get into it every time, but there was one problem, I really could not move my eyebrows. So I had the scene where I had to look mad and really use my eyebrows, but I really couldn't. It took such effort because of that hat, but it was a great hat, don't worry.
We usually get about 50 to 70 auditioners for every JWRC show. For The Music Man, we got nearly 150. 65 of them were under the age of 15. We had an entire night of auditions for kids, and even then I think we were there for about 4 hours. I'd never seen anything like it. Our heads were ready to explode at the end of that night. We had set a minimum age of 10, and after that night, I got a few angry emails from mothers who were furious that we hadn't made time to see their 9-year-olds who had just come to audition for the experience.
So the Wells Fargo Wagon number is a huge group number, as we know. I had a line that started it off, which was a little hard to time, so I worked hard with Margie to try to get that timing. But something happened during one of the performances, and the music was skipping, and we were all standing there on stage and didn't exactly know what to do. It's not like if a person misses a line and you can kind of improvise, bring the scene back. This was a matter of getting 50, 60 people to start singing at the same time. Somehow, Meira Blinkoff, little Meira standing next to me, saved the day.
There was a lot of this happening in my apartment. I don't know if I figured it out. We tried as a group, right, ladies?
Coordinating the sound cue and the dropping of the anvil case was definitely a challenge. And there were a few times when there was an interesting lag time, let's say, despite the fact that we nailed it the very first time we did it. I guess beginner's luck.
So Hannah was so cute to work with. At some point she came over to me and said, "Don't be afraid to be rough with me. Like, really shake me." I was like, okay. So I would do it dramatically. And at some point Margie, who was worried for her cast member safety, showed me how to position my arm on Hannah so that I wouldn't hurt her while she's being shaken. Margie wasn't taking any chances. I have a history of hitting cast members on the head.
The Music Man, one of the most classic, beloved musicals of all time. But if it was first put out today, it would probably be called The Real Housewives of River City. I mean, really, how does Witta Peru have a 7-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter? I mean, that's a lot of traveling salesmen in one city, don't you think?
Oh, I ate in the dressing room every time. I'm sorry. I had such long days and I really had the best snacks. I'm sorry. But yeah. I don't know if that's a blooper. Confession?